that's really important to do that and to apply it to your life in a way that best resonates with you. All right, so like I said, when I sat down or started thinking about this earlier in the week, I thought, oh, I'll normally show some cool cloud pictures and stuff, but they're really, I went back through my phone. I hadn't really seen much or taken many photos. And then just in the last few days, there was this kind of sunset angel. You can see an angel-shaped cloud that appeared. And then on Friday evening, all these weird rays started, showing up again. I don't know if you can see that from the picture, but again, it was like that. Those weird rays were being sent to Earth, and I don't know whether it was just that it was my radar was up for it and I took notice, or whether there was a synchronicity there. But I did see it, whereas a couple of times or several times in the previous several weeks, I hadn't really seen that. Yesterday morning when I woke up, there was this beautiful feather cloud in the sky, that stretched right over the house. And I love this little feather meanings, and I always look for things out in nature like that. And as you can see in the middle, up the top row there, sorry, second from the left, a white feather, according to this interpretation, it means that your angel is here and he wants you to know. And if that's the case, that was a mighty big feather across the sky. So hello, angel, on Saturday morning. And then this morning, there was this angel cloud that took about 20 minutes to fly over the house like that. And it was, that to me just looks like an angel in its wings. And so, it was just an interesting experience in terms of synchronicities and what you put your attention on, and how the universe responds. And again, it's easy to dismiss those things as just coincidences and all of that. I actually don't believe that. I do believe in those synchronicities. So I'd encourage you to have a look out and keep your radar up for those out in the world as well. I've also shared before from a guy that I follow on Facebook. He does a lot of spiritual, esoteric kind of stuff. And I went back through a number of his posts over the last week to see if there was anything that was really relevant. And there was some kind of stuff, but it was kind of really long. And I just went, I'm just not feeling it. So I'm gonna leave it out. And then when I woke up this morning, I checked, and 4 hours before I woke up, he had posted this, which is just fascinating. It's the Arcturus Gateway of October 2020. And it says today on October 17, so that, as I said, that was posted probably about 4 a.m. my time, or maybe 3 a.m. my time. Our sun makes its annual alignment with one of the brightest stars in the night sky, Arcturus. That's obviously where Arcturians come from. As our sun comes into alignment with Arcturus, we are able to merge with its energy and receive its incredible frequencies on Earth. As our sun aligns with Arcturian energy, we can all be reminded that our ability to love is so much greater than our ability to hate. We should feel this gateway of Arcturian energy with us from October 17th through to October 19th. So again, that's a really cool thing. That's the next couple of days. As the sun aligns with Arcturus, we are able to receive its light codes directly to the planet and straight into our bodies. These light codes will enter best from the center of our back behind the heart chakra. From October 17th to 19th, spend time meditating on this area of your body. Visualize streams of light entering the mid portion of your back. Feel this beautiful light lifting your mood and inviting more joy into every cell of your body. Our planet is about to go through a huge metamorphosis and shift in the coming months. The entire planet is getting an upgrade and moving up to new levels, which means so too are we, and we should all be very excited. Even though it seems hard or challenging to show and find love for those that we deem bad or dangerous or even evil. Hello world and all the stuff going on with COVID and all that sort of stuff. But the channel has gone on to say, if we open our hearts to recognize that the same love that made them have made us, and we start to heal ourselves and the planet. Just remember, the next time you're upset with someone or mad about something, remember that it's easy to be upset, but it's more powerful and more liberated to ask, how can I love instead? You will see that this game you are playing is not really about how much material items you can possess, and it's not what we collect. It's not how we collect the points. The points we want to come from other things. The points have no thing to do with success and everything to do with how we show up when we are called. And it was channeled by someone called Tanaz, by the Arcturians. And he also included this pretty cool picture of Arcturus as seen from Earth. Yeah, and I was fascinated to see that this morning. I hadn't sort of tried to force anything into the presentation. I thought, well, it's not meant to be, I'll just leave it. And you know, that showed up this morning. And so, you know, just again from the 17th to the 19th, and you know, that into that middle back behind, you know, behind our heart space, you know, energy coming into us is that's going to be really cool, I think. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. I thought that was really really interesting. All right, some opening thoughts. And I've one of the things I've wrestled with is this notion of healing and going to someone. I found this the other day, and I thought it was really interesting. It says a healer is not someone you go to for healing. A healer is someone who helps you to find the key within you for our own ability to heal. And I've heard so many times, you know, that the answers lie within, not without, and all of those sorts of things. And I've often questioned that, because it's so hard, or at least it has been for me, it's so hard sometimes to look inside of myself and find those answers. And that's where a healer can help unlock those things. But I really do feel, as I go deeper and further into this journey, that that is really true. You know, that the key is always within, but we might need some help from someone outside of us to unlock the key, but it certainly does lie within us. And again, to delve, or at least recap on masks, I do like this definition of it. Now, a mask is a covering for all or part of the face, worn for protection or to hide the face. I did notice speaking of masks, in a press conference, apparently Dan Andrews, the dictator Dan from the wonderful Socialist Republic of Victoria, said that masks have now become part of our culture, which is a scary thought. You know, and further on, the definitions of mask: to prevent something from being seen or noticed, and in particular, an appearance or behaviour that hides the truth. For me, of those three things, that last one is perhaps the most raw, the most telling, an appearance or behaviour that hides the truth. And as I shared, and I'll just recap in a moment, I've worn a shitload of masks in my life that really have hidden my truth, and that's had some fairly serious consequences, which I'm only delving into now, and I'll share some more of those as we go. And I did challenge you about, you know, what masks do you wear in your life? You know, there's an example of the happy mask, and I did also share at the time that whenever I work with business owners, I ask them how it's going. Oh, flat out, yeah, really busy. You know, and often that's not the case. We always say something positive so we don't look like a dick. And I had a really big revelation with that this week, which is kind of interesting. I also, and I just wanted to revisit the poem that I wrote about the mask that you wear. And so, why that mask you wear all through your day? Is it to cover up what you truly want to say? Or is the mask a habit of protection, to hide your deep need for self-affection? So why the mask wearing in all that you do? Maybe it's to hide from the sensitive real you. Or is the mask there to keep you sane, so you never stop, see and feel the pain? Why the mask you work so hard to wear? Is it to buffer the fear when people stare? Created deep in your mind when all along you wanted the mask that hides your true light? Is it because you're scared to shine bright? Or is it just you, or is it you just believe all that 3D shit when the true beauty in you really is it? Why this mask you've worn all your life? Is it just to get by, to avoid the emotional strife? Or maybe it's time to pause and feel not so aloof. Go on, take it off now and feel the beauty of your truth. Your mask hides your unique power, so go on, have the courage to remove it this hour. And I'm going to remove a couple of my masks today, the parenting one and the happy, nice guy one. And if I'm brutally honest with myself, I have worn those masks to hide what I felt was ugly for the world to see. and it has an interesting consequence. I did share with you as well all those hideous masks that I've worn all my life. I want to explain too where they come from, and that's that domestication thing. So you saw them there, all of those things, all the masks that I'm always there, the dutiful son, the dutiful brother, doing the right thing, etc., etc. Well, screw all that stuff, basically. All right, so let's dive in. I did want to just repeat this as well. I mean, Warren showed, I think the one on the left in particular, last week or the week before, about do they love you or the mask you put on every day, which is a really tough question to answer. And then wearing a mask wears you out. Faking it is fatiguing. The most exhausting activity is pretending to be what you know you aren't. I just actually want you to look at, because here's why I included these. I want you to look at those two slides those two pictures. And I think it's brilliant the way they've created them, because I don't know about you, but they feel like such a heavy, dark, horrible energy. That black, and it's just like an endless blackness, and the black eyes behind the mask. And I actually, when just having those things on the screen in front of me, I actually feel quite a heaviness in my solar plexus. And I think that is really reflective in what masks are for us, right? They are a dark, heavy energy. And so it really hit me when I looked at that again. I wasn't going to include this slide, but when I looked at it again, I felt dark, and I felt like it was those slides are a real metaphor for what masks actually are in our life. The other thing I will say too is that since we spoke about that a few weeks ago, how much it's shifted people, or at least shifted something in at least in my life, and other people's lives, because we've talked about it quite a bit. And here's the thing, that the pain of taking the mask off, it can make you feel pretty unsettled, pretty rattled. One, because you're doing something probably for the first time that's not out of habit, and always when you break a habit, that the new thing is uncomfortable. But also it's like you feel exposed when you take a mask off, and that exposure can be uncomfortable at first. It's liberating, obviously, but it can be very uncomfortable at first. And the good thing about it, and the good news in all of it, I love this. It says millions of people never analyze themselves. Mentally, they are mechanical products of the factory of their environment, preoccupied with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, working and sleeping, and going here and there to be entertained. They don't know what or why they are seeking, nor why they never realize complete happiness and lasting satisfaction. By evading self-analysis, people go on being robots, conditioned by their environment. True self-analysis is the greatest art of progress. I just want that to sit with you for a moment. And to reflect, how much of your life have you been like that? Preoccupied with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, working and sleeping, just doing all that 3D stuff. And probably by extension then, people you've known for a long time, when you've started to awaken and go on this journey and start peeling some of your masks off, how that's changed you, and how you can also see in other people how they are just stuck in that 3D matrix of doing all of those things and searching and never finding anything. So I just want to be quiet for like 20 seconds or so, and just let you reflect on that in your life and in the lives of people that you know. Did anything come up for anyone there that you want to share, either on the mic or in the chat? I'm seeing the chat today. Thanks, Grace. Really hitting the mark today. Warren, totally agree. Anything else come up for anyone, just in reflection of that point? No?
I just want to add, Steve, I mean, millions of people never analyse themselves. But then the question comes with, well, do we need to analyse ourselves? Is there anything to analyse? And if there's anything to analyse, where do you begin? How do you start?
Mm. Yeah, the second last sentence there, Grace. By evading self-analysis, people go on being robots conditioned by their environment. I guess not everyone will, at least this time round on the planet. But I think there are enough weirdos like all of us here who start doing that. Who start, you know, there's obviously probably a little bit like how a grain of sand becomes a pearl. You know, it just agitates over time, and all of a sudden this pearl comes about. At least from my perspective, it started with a thought. You know, I'd grown up just thinking I was a victim of the world that I was in, and then the Hicks book by Esther and Jerry Hicks, you know, the Teachings of Abraham, that really opened. That started the journey for me in questioning, well, can I change things? Am I in control? You know, totally before that, I was just that robot, just trying to pay the bills, get through life, get through each day. You know, it really was a slow process. And this is probably, to be blunt, this is one of the things that has pissed me off about the process. It's digging deep and it's peeling off a layer, and you think, oh, good, I've dealt with that. And then, oh, shit, here it comes back again. I've got to dig deeper and more. And, you know, there's always that red flag of, you know, I've already dealt with that, you know. That's probably one of the worst things you can think or say, because when you know you do, well, sorry, when you say or think that, you know you actually haven't. You know, so it's that whole process, I think, is, and it's easy to fall off the wagon as well. We've all seen that too. Warren has said, masks are very Luciferian. It's like taking away your freedom and voice. Yeah. Yeah. Sheldon said, so true. Pastor William, very true. Christina said, just reflected on all those that I know and who I have moved on from since I've been on this journey. Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? You never saw it, Christine, months ago, years ago, but you can see it so plainly now, how they haven't shifted and you have. And I'm always mindful of not having a spiritual arrogance when I say that, is look how good I am and how much I've shifted, and you haven't. You're just an idiot stuck back there. I try never to do that, you know, because we are all on our own journey, but you really can see it really clearly. And Grace has said the benefits of having grumpy people around us certainly pricks us to awaken. Yeah, and that's true. And Famita has said most people are busy just trying to survive. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and you're right, Famita, we get caught in that trap of survival. You know, and that when you are at survival, that takes all of your focus and energy. So you really don't have the space almost to look for that. And Christine says it's like you have nothing in common anymore. Yeah, and I've felt that with family, with friends. You know, it's almost like my company is the only place that I'm comfortable with. Yeah, so it was that really hit me, that to reflect on ourselves and other people in you know, in this journey and in what we're doing. So all right, let's keep moving. Oh, I love this. And speaking of taking your masks off, Nolene sent this to me during the week. So forgive and forget doesn't work for me. And of course, the whole thing of, you know, being nice and wearing the nice mask and forgiving people and being loving and all of that, you know, well, forgive and forget doesn't work for me. Fuck off and shit out a cactus works perfectly. So thank you, Nolene, for the share. I love that. And it's certainly made me reflect on on different times in my life where you know, I've gone, oh, you know, yeah, look, we can just forgive and move on and that. And really, the mind was screaming, No, just fuck off, you're an idiot, or whatever it might be, or shit out a cactus. So it's it's a really cool one. Yeah, Christine says she loves it. Grace said brilliant. Pastor William liked it as well. Yeah, cool. So it was a really, obviously it hit you, Nolene, right where it mattered, and I got such a chuckle out of it and went, yeah. Yeah, I love that. And Sam says very cool. For me, to very cool. Christine, I love that. So yeah, good one, great one, Nolene. All right, let's push ahead. Removing our masks and how it feels. I found this little tile as well. It says, a spiritual awakening is not usually pleasant. And I know all of you can relate to that. Often it feels like confusion, frustration, anger, sadness, grief, or being out of place. A spiritual awakening can be uncomfortable and challenging because it's an intense form of personal growth. But despite how difficult it may feel, you're not going crazy, you're evolving. So can anyone just relate to that, how uncomfortable it is, how out of place, how out of sorts, how out of whack? Can you just put a yes in the chat if you can relate to that? Christine, yes. For me to yes with an exclamation mark. Absolutely. Grace, definitely. Nolene, yes, with lots of exclamation marks. Sheldon, yes. All right, thank you, everyone. That's great. I'm not the only weirdo here. That's always a little bit of a comforting thought. And I guess it's a case of like attracts like as well. And so the next part of that, awakening is not all flowers and rainbows. It's a destructive process. Shit fucking hurts, to be more blunt. And that's putting it putting it mildly. And Miko says it's how I've been feeling all year. Yeah, me too, Miko. It's 2020 has certainly been a year of shifts, and those shifts are not comfortable, right? It's not like walking through a beautiful clear forest with all these lovely soft rose petals on the garden, the bird on your feet, and the birds chirping away, and all of that kind of thing. It's certainly not like that. It's the shit fucking hurts, and it does, and it continues to hurt, and it craps you off some days. A little bit of respite though. Being a boxing fan, I did like this cartoon. Keep it up. He's getting overconfident. Now and then, we all need a little encouragement. So sessions like today and every Sunday, to me, they're like the trainer there. It's okay, and we are going to be okay as well. Actually, that probably aligns really interestingly for me to what you've written there, that sometimes even physically uncomfortable. Yeah. And Warren was speaking about that, before we started, how it's coming out physically. It's had to come out in his feet and his hands and so forth. And he has spoken about, different parts of his body at different times, how all the shifting actually does create physical pain. That energy moves somewhere in our body, and I can certainly relate to that, and shoulder and hip and heel and those sorts of things over time. And so yeah, it's uncomfortable, it's not easy. It's far easier and simpler and quicker just to jump off this train, although most of us, I think, realize we almost can't. We can't go backwards, we can't get caught in this limbo of where we are. It's kind of forward, and it's almost that that story of I think it was Ulysses, when they went to invade Troy, they burnt the boat. So it was kind of a victory or death kind of thing. And that's a little bit what, to me, this awakening journey feels like as well. So if you need encouragement, that's why we are here. And keep it up. He is getting overconfident. All right. An example of the pain, and this is a personal story of mask wearing. That guy there, that was me. It's not actually a picture of me, but it's representing of me. One of the masks I have worn all my life, and all my life to my detriment, is the happy-go-lucky guy. And if I think about it, in all the different roles that I've played in the family, as a kid in the family, as a teacher, as a sports coach, as a husband, as a father, I was always the calm one, the happy one. For example, as a sports coach, I wouldn't get riled very often. Maybe if someone did something bad to one of my kids, I might, but most of all, I was just very calm, very matter of fact. Get kids in at half time, just talk about what's going on. None of this ranting and raving or any of those sorts of things. And so I have been conditioned to be this nice, happy guy where, everything's good. Everything's fine. I'm happy. It's all good. There's nothing to see here, which I may or may not have said in the past. Say nothing, Grace, right now. But yeah, everything's happy. Everything's fine. There's no problem. On Wednesday, actually, now where that comes from is my upbringing. And in unpicking all of this, the thing that really stood out for me was, I don't know if your mother ever did this to you, but in getting ready for a photo or going and seeing somewhere, they'd stick their finger in a handkerchief, lick the handkerchief, and rub off really roughly whatever shit you had around your mouth so people couldn't see you had a dirty face. So I don't know if anyone's ever had that, or it was just me and my weird upbringing. But the whole, I used to hate that, by the way. My God, it's so hurt, the poking, just leave me alone, get away from me. Sam said no, thankfully. Lucky you, Sam. But it was almost like, for me, that was a real metaphor for always putting on the happy face. Always putting on the happy face and putting on a show, get ready for the photo and smile. Put on the happy face, smile for the photo. For Meta said she's even done it to her own children. Lol. Yeah, I know this is a cringeworthy time for Meta. It is for both me, and feel free to cringe with me. But that whole programming of put on a happy face and smile for the camera is probably one of the strongest masks I have worn all my life. And what it meant that I never acknowledged any negative feelings that I had. I always squashed them down. And it really hit me like a punch in the guts on Wednesday when Grace and I were talking. She said to me, "You're actually not happy. You're actually a cranky guy. You're actually moody and cranky." And I paused and I just went, holy shit, you're right. And I think back, like, in joyous moments, happy moments, at a really good sporting game, when out to dinner with friends, I was still grumpy a lot of that time. I was still cranky and cantankerous, yet no one ever saw that. Everyone just saw that guy. And that was really uncomfortable, because that's who I was really underneath. Not all the time, but a lot of the time, and yet people only ever saw that. And I can't describe when I actually, in that talk with Grace on Wednesday, I actually gave myself permission for it to be okay that I'm a cranky fuck. And it was just so liberating. It's very contradictory that I'm in saying, no, I'm cranky, I'm grumpy. Fuck this, I'm grumpy. In saying that, there was a sense of joy, because it was finally like the happy mask was gone, and it was okay to actually express that. And I can remember the next day, when we woke up and Jenny and I were having coffee, she said, "Oh, how are you going now? Yeah, how are you today?" Or something like that. And before I would have said, "Oh yeah, I'm good," and thinking, no, I didn't want to get out of bed today, I'm pissed off, I'm cranky. I just said, no, I'm fucking grumpy. She said, why? Just because I am. And it was funny how an hour later that grumpy energy had just dissipated, because I didn't fight it, because I didn't squash it, because I didn't bury it behind some bullshit happy mask to get ready for the photo that was at some point coming up in my life. I mean, it sounds so ridiculous, so small, so insignificant. but there was a massive shift in energy for me in being able just to acknowledge and say, I'm fucking cranky. I hate this shit. I'm not happy. I'm cranky. And for that to be okay. And it was probably one of the few times in my life I have been okay with a negative feeling. Because the guy on the left there, everything's fine. That was the mask that Steve showed to the world. And yet underneath, a lot of the time, not all of the time, but a lot of the time, was the cranky bastard on the right there. And that was a massive shift. And so, it forced me to reflect, would the real Steve come forward? Is that the real Steve, or is it that guy or that girl? And the happy mask, I reckon 70% of the time I'm grumpy as fuck. And it's so good to be able to say that. It's so good to peel off the happy mask. It gives me great joy to actually acknowledge that and say that, where I never have before in my life. And what I realized, where a lot of that had come from, being an empath, like Grace said at the start, being an empath, I had realized that I had taken on responsibility for the happiness of other people. And as an empath, and you may relate to this, it goes something, the bullshit like this. The pain of me feeling shitty is less than the pain or seeing the pain of others or having the pain of others projected onto me. And what that meant is it seemed like I had carried behind that, underneath that happy mask, the responsibility for making others feel good. And all that did was shut me down and squash me, close me off. And finally being able to take that mask off and say, actually, I'm not responsible for the emotions of others. I'm cranky. It's not your fault. I'm just cranky. I'm cantankerous. I'm prickly. Don't fucking talk to me. Just leave me alone. God, it felt good. And in being able to say that, it wasn't like, what would happen? What will happen if I say that? Will they think less of me? Will they not like me? And again, it gets back to that thing of putting a smile on, making sure your face is all done so no one thinks less of you because you've got a bit of shit around your mouth. Look good for the cameras, smile. It was just so imprisoning. And this week was so freeing. Actually, Sam's made a comment here. I just realized that in years past, Isaac was mirroring for me that I should have been letting my feelings show so I can move past them just like him. I always tried to wear the happy mask in front of my kids. Now I'm much better at it. Well, more power to you, Sam. Thanks for that share. It's a shit existence when you do that. And interesting how our kids teach us things, which will be which we'll show more shortly. Sam says yes. I love this. The author, Shatki Gawain, he said, every time you don't follow your inner guidance, you feel a loss of energy, loss of power, a sense of spiritual deadness. And gee, that resonates for a lot of my life. Not all of my life. Yes, I've still had happy moments. We've done lots of good things, lots of cool things. Where we live is fantastic. Going to the beach is great. All those sorts of things. It's not like the life is dark and black, but that spiritualness inside, that feeling inside is a spiritual deadness. And I honestly believe that comes from the masks that we wear and don't show our real selves. I really feel that deeply, and I've felt that deeply this week. The other thing is I'm reading a really cool book now called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. It's an old book. I think it's been in print for about 30 years now. And it's all about unlocking your creativity. And I think there's a real parallel here between unlocking our creativity and taking off our masks. And so these words just really resonate. I only read them, I don't know, yesterday or the day before. It says, trusting our creativity is new behavior for many of us. It may feel quite threatening initially, not only to us, but also to our intimates. We may feel and look erratic. This erraticism is a normal part of getting unstuck, pulling free from the muck that has blocked us. It is important to remember that at first flush, going sane just feels just like going crazy. And again, you think about it for, it goes empath me, think about it for those around you. They're used to seeing the happy mask in my case. And all of a sudden, that mask is off and there's some weird guy now saying, no, I'm pissed off. Leave me alone. Don't talk to me. I'm cranky. That can be really confronting, right? And it's also confronting internally, because all of a sudden, without that mask on, she's quite right. It feels like you're going crazy. Oops. I've lost the chat. Anyway, someone did put a chat in there. Can anyone relate to that? About it feels like you're going nuts, or is it just me? Am I just particularly weird? Anyone relate to that feeling of going crazy and things just all over the place and going haywire? Miko says, so true, Steve. It's liberating to show others your negative emotions, which I also used to hide as an empath. Yeah. And Nolene has said, absolutely. Sam, yes. Okay, good. I'm not the only one who's going nuts. Thank you for your empathetic support. And for me to say yes as well. It's really hard to explain though, and I think unless you're going through it, you know, it's really hard for someone on the outside to really understand that. Nolene has said, people don't know how to cope when you show them the real you. Yeah, that's true. And Grace has said it just increases the deeper you go. Nolene says, time they learned. Oh, that's that part about shitting out the cactus, I think, Nolene, right? Christine says she's still struggling with it. Yeah, Christine, me too. I'm still struggling with it. As liberating as it was, I'm still struggling with that and coming to terms with it. I'm not going to give it up though. I'm not going to put that mask back on, but it is still a challenge, and you feel like I'm going crazy. Why is this happening to me? You know, am I clinically depressed? Should I go and get on meds? You know, or is this just part of the process? It feels so hard. It feels so awful. You know, so it was really, it's been a really, no, never meds. No, Christine, I've never been on meds in my life. And I have no plan to be. And nice, Sam, where Sam says we're all in this nut house together, Steve. Yep, that is comforting. But it can get, the pain can get so deep that you just think, what the fuck is going on? What is going on? Why am I feeling like this? This is so hard. This is awful. What idiot would put themselves through this? At least that's how it is for me. So hopefully all you other weirdos and nuthouse people, hopefully you've got that relates to you in some way. So in conclusion with that part of it, and for me to, how long would this, yes, for me to, actually, I think I've even said that to Grace, how long does this shit last? That is the question that's bouncing around my head a lot. My God, how long does this shit go on for? And I think Grace mentioned a bit further up in the chat, she said, it only increases the deeper you go. So there's a really great news for Meta. It only increases the deeper you go. All right, Si, let's pick up the wagon and you know, shoulder to the wheel and forge on. Well, that's really good, Grace. Fantastic. Sure does. Smiley face. All right. Let's see if we can shift some of that energy with some stuff today. So if that hit a raw nerve for you, it always does with me. So being called weird is like being called limited edition, meaning you're something people don't see that often. Remember that. So yeah, good. We're unique. We're limited edition. I love this too. The introvert empath. Hello, I'm speaking to everyone here, I think. Sometimes they want to be left alone. Sometimes they want to be included. But most of the time, they want to be included with the option of being left alone. So Uh, can anyone relate to that one? I love that. I got a real chuckle out of that one. Can anyone relate to that one? Nolene all the time. Christine, absolutely. Famita sounds about right. Sam, love that. Sheldon, yes. It's like that. Yeah, that's my kids too. Interesting story. Warren says, "Nah, no, I thought it was crap." Yeah, Warren. Well, you are unique. That's true. Good for you. More power to you. The interesting thing, your kids are like that too. When I saw that, I remember back when Isaac was was little. I'm talking 3, maybe 4. Whenever anyone would come to the house, he would run and hide. Right, being the introverted empath that is, he would run and hide somewhere, and people would come. Oh, how are you going? I'd go out there thinking, oh fuck, here they are. But the happy mask would come and, oh, great to see you. Thanks for calling in. No, no, no. And then all the while thinking, I hope you don't stay long. Where are you going to? When are you going to go? No, it's nice to see you, but when are you going to go? Just leave. So yeah, we want to be included with the option of being left alone. I think most of the time we choose being left alone. I mean, being the adult in the house, I had to put the mask on and go out and let them in. Being the raw kid, Isaac, he just went and hid somewhere. So yeah. So yeah, Warren said, "No, I thought it was crap." Grace has said, "Wonder what the extrovert version is." Who cares? As an introvert, I don't care, Grace. Simple as that. Mark has said, it continues until you die, but you find the things that bother you and trigger you no longer do as you get stronger. You handle large issues that no way could you have tackled before, refined by fire. The bushfires. Yeah, true, Mark. And I guess that journey just, it keeps going, doesn't it? Yeah, but as Grace said, the digger we deep, the worse or the harder it can get. So yeah, I thought any introverted empath might appreciate that. However, probably being an introverted empath, you don't want to say so. So well done on you. And then I love this as well. A lot of the time, those of us who don't fit in and never really have a much bigger purpose here on earth. And I don't know about you, but I can't remember too many places where I felt like I really fitted in. Probably it was because of the masks I wore, but it's also all this other spiritual stuff. Those of us who were made fun of for being different, we are the ones here to create a new world. The outcasts are the trendsetters, the ones who see the world differently, the ones who were never meant to follow the crowd. So if this happens to be you, do not worry or feel down on yourself. No one will ever be like you, and you won't ever be like the majority, thank God. Being outcasted is a very good thing when you look at it this way. So if you've never felt like you fitted in, welcome, weirdo. It's great for you to join us. And Grace says, "Lol, love it." So yeah, to all us weirdos, great to have you on board, even if we don't really want to talk to each other because we're too introverted. All right, so after the next part of the story, I think, is after I had that revelation of, yeah, I'm cranky. I don't mind admitting that. I haven't drawn. I've done a reading for this group from memory from the Rumi Oracle cards before, and I haven't drawn from these for probably 3 or 4 weeks. And for some reason, I don't know, I was just cranky. I said to myself Thursday morning after Wednesday, mask coming off, and now I'm pissed off. I haven't looked at Rumi for a while. I'll go and pick a Rumi card, and this card here came up, card number 12, and it's probably the longest reading in the deck, but I did want to share it with you and go through it with you because when I shared it with the group on Friday, it really resonated with a lot of people. Notice the image of the card in particular, but also the words on it. It says divine discontent, and that relates really closely to what we were just talking about, how we feel like we're going crazy, how nothing feels right, we don't feel like we fit in anywhere. There is this discontent, but notice the first word there, divine discontent. So to me, that's really important because it's a discontent that is beyond the 3D shit that we see, I can't pay the bill this month, or gee, I don't have a BMW like my neighbor, or, my partner left me, or, you know, gee, I wish we had a bigger house, or, you know, things will get better if I get that promotion or that new job. That's the 3D discontent. And this is not talking about that stuff. This is talking about the divine discontent. And it just hit me in the guts and so resonated with me on Thursday when I read it. I wanted to share it with you. And the poem at the start, even that is really important, by Rumi. It says, winter falls upon us, so spring can bring new growth. Cry the tears, allow the longing. Sadness brings surrender and a deep desire to be free. That last sentence in particular, sadness brings surrender. Because it is sad, like all this pain, it's hard, right? Sadness brings surrender and a deep desire to be free. And I think when we take the masks off, we have a great sense of freedom. Anyway, it goes on. This is quite a long introduction, then an even longer oracle. So just follow through if you like as we go through. It says, I know your heart. I hear it breaking and groaning in darkness. Night where you imagine yourself to be silently cast adrift in sleep. It speaks to me, that sacred heart of yours, whispering its longing and bemoaning its divine discontent. It knows when something is amiss. It senses that something is not quite right as yet. There is a piece of the puzzle missing. And I don't know about you guys, but in this journey, there does feel like something's not quite right. There are pieces missing. There's still stuff to discover. Even in its tremendous gratitude for all that is, and there is much gratitude and sweet appreciation in that precious heart of yours, there is a murmuring, a questioning. It cries out to heaven, vouchsafe me a blessing. I cannot go on. I am broken and in need of your tenderness for healing. That's what it feels like sometimes, at least for me, that I am broken and I need healing. And it goes on. I am empty and in need of filling, not with stuff and bits, but with the most precious nectar of divine fulfillment. Nothing else will satisfy me. Please, please restore me to wholeness. I can bear this missing piece, this broken disarray no longer. And it does. It feels like stuff is missing from us. I listen and I cajole that wise heart of yours. I praise it for its honesty and longing, for the longing is an irresistible perfume to the beloved, attracting the only salve that will soothe the divine discontent of your truth-speaking heart, that of divine presence, absolute and unquestionable. And there's a lot of language in there that really resonated for me when I first read it. But it does go deeper. And it says, there is a sense within you, perhaps quite obvious to your conscious mind, or perhaps only dimly registered as an unnameable underlying sense of anxiety, that something in your life is not quite right. It may be the sense, even amongst so much gratitude, of a yearning yet to be met, a longing yet to be fulfilled and satisfied. And that first paragraph, again, it hit me quite starkly, because there I was out the back on, of the water on the Sunshine Coast, lovely life, all of that stuff, and I've come so far in my journey, and I could be grateful and all of that love and light stuff, but there was a yearning. There's a longing that hasn't been satisfied yet, and the more masks I take off, it seems to get harder. And so this, like I said, this really resonated with me, and hopefully it's resonating with you too. It goes on. This is the pain of the awakening heart. That heart is capable of bliss and ecstatic reverence for the sheer beauty and wonder of creation. Yet as the heart matures, there will be a process of deep passionate longing that awakens for the divine. It is the impatience for the caress of the great lover, for the presence of the divine to come to you. Over time, that longing will grow from a mild inner sense of incompleteness, needing to become whole. It will develop into a holy fever, a sacred rage, a stamping of dancing feet, a pounding of fists upon the altar, and a longing so deep and distressing that one may well break into tears at the impossibility of bearing the pain of apparent separation for even a moment longer. Where is my beloved, cries the awakening heart. I call for my beloved, and yet here I am, still waiting. I can stand this no longer. As devotion grows and passion for the divine intensifies, so too does this yearning. So much so that this may come to feel as though your heart is breaking for the divine, or perhaps you are not quite there yet. Your heart is attached to smaller gods, such as your status, your job, your lover, your body looking a certain way, or being able to live your life in a particular way. These smaller gods are not necessarily an issue, yet you have drawn this oracle, and so it is guidance for you that the divine wants to draw you closer. Sometimes that means we will have to, I can't read that bit, a meal wrestled from your hands so we may feast upon something far more delectable and grand. The divine is a fiercely passionate lover. If there is a face of another beloved preventing you from longing for the divine embrace, and if you cannot see that it is the divine beloved within your lover that you are loving, well, then something will be done by heaven. So make your relationship sacrosanct. Seek the divine in all things. When you cannot, when the power of lesser gods has you in its grip, acknowledge it. Bear witness to it. Do not chastise. Instead, be truthful. So for me, that part is like removing of the mask. And for me, it's okay to be a cranky prick. You know, that's me being truthful. I'm not happy. I'm not putting my happy mask on. I'm cranky today. I'm cantankerous. So let your heart break and lie prostrate on the floor, hands clutching and head bowed as though only your sadness and plight could stir the heart of the divine beloved into descent of succor and grace, saving you from a life far too bland for your exquisite Epicurean palate. Just don't misinterpret the pain and think that something real is really wrong. And that's kind of like because that relates to what we were just speaking about then of how we feel like we're going crazy. It's a nice confirmation. Well, there's not really anything wrong. It's just part of the process. If you are surrounded by status and money and cannot understand why you should mourn, that's how I feel, it's even more important that you allow yourself to do so. Mourning is to be felt, understanding not so relevant. But if you must seek understanding, then know this, dear blazing angel. You are just waking from the deepest slumber, and with your awakening heart, you are realizing a truth. A part of you, deeper and wider, vaster and more instinctive, truthful and intelligent than your mind, is lonely for the divine embrace. This is right. This is sensible. This is sanity. It even uses the word sanity. It is the pain, the real noble pain of the heart that says there is something more than this inadequacy, this settling for plastic instead of precious gemstones that must end now. I cannot be fed by pixelated sunsets in animation upon my computer screen. I yearn to be blasted by so much radiance and beauty, by the real thing, that I become stupefied. I must witness so much divine splendor that all I can utter is some incoherent grunt, my mind disassembled and my heart ignited by the presence of my beloved. And that kind of reminded me, how you feel this morning? It was kind of like a grunt for me. And I was okay with that. I want to become a fumbling, ecstatic wreck in the presence of my beloved. I want to allow this pain, this yearning, this divine discontent to guide me to my holy lover so my life may never be the same again. And so there is something in the pain that we are feeling as we're going through that. There is a point to it. There is a process, or it's part of the process that we are going through. And so it shall be. The discontent divine growing within you is the beginning, not the destiny. Its purpose is to lead you into your greatest connection with divinity. Do not resist it. Witness it. Do not dismiss it, trying to cover up its smell with rose petals. Let your rank discontent be the pathway to divinity. Look beyond what is, what has been prized and treasured, and is now found to be plated and not the precious gold it once was esteemed to be. Don't be scared, for you are my sidekick in this great holy adventure. I am here, you see, just around the corner. I have you in my sights, though you may not yet see me yet. I am holding a loaf of fresh bread, hot from the kitchen of the Creator, hoping to entice you with its wafting scent, tempting you to follow me on towards something far more substance. It will still suck on. If you are still stuck on pine-scented air freshener, imagining it is anything akin to the wild scent of the pine forest for real, then how can I tempt you? Let the stench be the stench. Then the fragrance of God can be discerned, and together we can leave what is left behind, once and for all, grabbing like hungry school children for the divine bread with sweet, fresh scent filling the air. Like I said, it was one of the longest readings in that whole deck. Did that relate to you, or could you relate to that in any way? I'd love to get your feedback on that. Did it just hit the spot for me on where I am at my journey, or was there something in there for you as well? I'd love to see what you think. Not resonate with anyone? For me, it definitely resonated with me, as at one point today I thought something was wrong with me. I think that every day. For me, I think there's something wrong with me every day. So yeah, thank you. Christine says yes, it resonates for me. Anyone else? Was there a part there that stood out for you? Nolene, yeah, it did. Let the stench be the stench. Yeah, Grace spoke and I spoke about that this morning. Thanks, Nolene. Anything else from anyone else? Sam, I feel the yearning for more, like the journey has just begun. I feel the yearning for the beauty of nature. Yeah, nice, Sam. Yeah, and it mentioned the word yearning in there, and it's a really good word, isn't it? Because it's not it's not an aching, it's not a desperation, it's just a yearning. You know, I don't know why, but that word really resonates with me. It really is like a connection thing for me with, you know, that there is more there. I want to know more. I want to dig deeper. And for me, it says, I'm glad to know that it is divine discontent. Yeah, it's a really interesting term, isn't it, for me, to the divine discontent. It's not discontent for stuff, for trinkets. You know, it's deeper than that. It's more important than that. Sam says, like a gentle call that coaxes you forward. Yeah, for sure. Christine says, yearning is a great word because sometimes you don't know what it is you're looking for. Yeah. Yeah, that's profound, Christine. You're right. There's just something there, right? And if someone said, well, just tell me, what is it? Name it. You know, I don't know. Yeah, so that's a great point, Christine. All right, anyone else? All right, so hopefully that was helpful in unpacking that a little bit more. But that really did hit me on Thursday morning when I read it, and then when I shared it with the group on Friday. So there's a little honouring ritual at the end of it, and I just invite you to do that if you want to just to I guess to help clear that energy out. If you just want to read along with me as I read along in your own space, or just even listen, that's okay. But it says, place one hand on your heart and one on your belly. So I invite you to do that now. And it says, say the following aloud. Rumi, who loves me unconditionally, guide me now. I acknowledge the gratitude in my heart, genuine and fierce, and I acknowledge the hunger for the divine unfolding in my belly, the urging forward towards some unknown, indescribable sacred satiety. Guide me to the holy table where the true feast awaits. I am no longer satisfied by stale crumbs or the remnants of another's feast. I want to feast with the Holy One, the Great One, to know directly and for myself that I am divine. With your mercy, grace, and wisdom, guide me there, dearest brother of my soul. I cast my soul into your care and follow my nose. I follow my nose towards the sweetest scent of the holy feast. And then it says, rest or stand up and dance your prayer. Just be with your body and how it wants to be, to rest or move now, whatever you choose. Stay with your breath and with whatever feels truthful. So you might just want to stretch in place. That's what I'm doing now. I'll just be quiet for 10 or 15 seconds, and then we'll do the second part of the ritual. Okay. All right, just to finish that off then, if you want to say along with me as I read through, it says, release that which is not worthy for my soul to feast upon. I do not decide this for myself from a place of distrust or judgment. I surrender my attachment and I trust in the sacred workings of life to present to me what is needed. I surrender. I surrender. In sacred trust, I surrender. May my life be governed by love for the greatest good and in holy service to love now. So be it. Well, thank you for joining in. It says we finished our sacred honouring ritual. So I just wanted to share that as a, I guess a way of helping, as I said, helping that energy move through, because it can be quite intense, the yearning that you know, that we experience, and that sense that, geez, I'm going nuts, I'm crazy. And the conclusion to all of this is that I love this too, and I wanted to share this. It says, generations of pain are ending with you. When you bravely choose to heal from your past, you help to release deeply ingrained generational pain. You did the healing of 100 generations that came before you. Be proud of yourself. Cycles of pain are ending with you, and new cycles of love, peace, and prosperity are beginning. You're helping to lead a new way forward, which is based upon kindness and compassion. Those who will come after you will no longer have to inherit pain or fear. They'll inherit a legacy of love. And so I guess that's my hope in completing, in doing this work. You know, it's my hope that I am breaking that karmic cycle. It's my hope that I'm leaving, by going through this, my kids don't have to go through this, or at least make it as difficult and as hard. And so, you know, I guess in sharing that, I wanted to at least share that there is a point to what we're doing. You know, and that is, and I think also to, as that, like the boxing cartoon, to as an encouragement, you know, to keep striving, to keep going forward, to keep digging deeper. And Miko has said, no wonder it's so bloody painful. Yeah, and no wonder it feels like we're going crazy. All right, any other comments at this point before I move on? Mike or chat, anything else anyone would like to share? Anything that's come up for anyone? Okay, all good. Let's keep pushing on. Okay, I want to dig deeper into this and the masks of parenthood. This was, when I first saw this was really uncomfortable for me. And if you're a parent or you've been parented, which is probably all of us, it may resonate with you and be something of a poke in the eye. And it goes like this. It's by Dr. Shafali Sabri. My child isn't an easel to paint on, nor my diamond to polish. My child isn't my trophy to share with the world, nor my badge of honor. My child isn't an idea, an exception, or a fantasy. I'm just going to be quiet and let you read that again. I'd love to know, did reading that, and can you just put a yes in the chat, did that make you uncomfortable the way it made me feel uncomfortable? And made me reflect on, holy shit, have I done that to my kids? I'd love to know if anyone else felt that shift. Just put a yes in the chat if that resonated with you on some level. Uncomfortably, probably. Sam said yes. Thank you, Sam. Anyone else? Either from your parenting or the parenting you've done. Famita, thank you. Famita said yes. Anyone else with a Y or a yes in the chat? It's just me, Sam, and Famita. Anyone else that was uncomfortable for? Made you squirm a little bit? Sure made me squirm, made me really reflect on like, holy shit, have I done any of that? Anyone else? Just me, for Mita and Sam. It's okay, right? Okay, I want to tell you or share with you a little bit more about why something like that is uncomfortable. And it's from the book The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And what he says, thanks Miko. Miko says, yes, me. What he says basically, if I can summarize it, is that we are domesticated humans. Now think about that word domesticated. It means trained, kept down, kept in place. We are domesticated humans. And what he says is we've been trained or domesticated by our parents. I know that's true for me. Marcus said, not so much. I see kids as having their own lives to live, and our job as parents to help guide them and get out of their way to live their best life. Yet on a deeper level, it probably does. Well, thanks, Mark, for your honesty. Yeah, I agree. Here's my take on that. So my take on that, and I'm just speaking for me personally, that's what I thought I did. But when I thought deeper about it, I'm not sure if I actually let that play out like that. I think I actually did my own version of some of those things. And the story I'm going to share with you might show some of that as well. Mark says true. Okay. Yeah, so what Don Miguel Ruiz says is that we've been trained or domesticated by our parents. That's true for me, 100%. Handkerchief on the face, put on a happy smile, the happy mask, everything will be fine. And in turn, he says we've trained and domesticated our own kids, and that's where that saying comes from. And I'd just like to delve into this a little bit more. Look, this is quite a long passage, but please bear with me. The first big point that he makes is that humans are dreaming all the time, and I'll just read from the book. He says, before we were born, the humans before us created a big outside dream that we will call society's dream or the dream of the planet. The dream of the planet is the collective dream of billions of smaller personal dreams, which together create a dream of a family, a dream of a community, a dream of a city, a dream of a country, and finally a dream for the whole humanity. The dream of the planet includes all of society's rules, its beliefs, its laws, its religions, its different cultures and ways to be, its government, schools, social events, and holidays. We were born with the capacity to learn how to dream, and the humans who lived before us teach us how to dream the way society dreams. The outside dream has so many rules that when a new human is born, we hook the child's attention and introduce these rules into his or her mind. The outside dream uses mum and dad, the schools, and religion to teach us how to dream. Attention is the ability we have to discriminate and focus only on that which we want to perceive. We can perceive millions of things simultaneously, but using our attention, we can hold whatever we want to perceive in the foreground of our mind. The adults around us hooked our attention and put information into our minds through repetition. This is the way we learned everything we know. By using our attention, we learned a whole reality, a whole dream. We learned how to behave in society, what to believe and what not to believe, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, what is good and what is bad, what is beautiful and what is ugly, what is right and what is wrong. It was all there, all that knowledge, all those rules and concepts about how to behave in the world. When you were in school, you sat in a little chair and put your attention on what the teacher was teaching you. When you went to church, you put your attention on what the priest or minister was telling you. It's the same dynamic with mum and dad, brothers and sisters. They were all trying to hook your attention. We also learn to hook the attention of other humans, and we develop a need for attention which can be very competitive. Children compete for the attention of their parents, their teachers, their friends. Look at me, look at me. Look at what I'm doing. Hey, here I am. The need for attention becomes very strong and continues into adulthood. The outside dream hooks our attention and teaches us to believe, beginning with the language that we speak. It's not our choice to speak English. You didn't choose your religion or your moral values. They were already there before you were born. We never had the opportunity to choose what to believe or what not to believe. We never chose even the smallest of these agreements. We didn't even choose our own name. As children, we didn't have the opportunity to choose our beliefs, but we agreed with the information that was passed to us from the dream of the planet via other humans. That's how we learn as children. Children believe everything adults say. We agree with them, and our faith is so strong that the belief system controls our whole dream of life. We didn't choose these beliefs, and we may have rebelled against them, but we were not strong enough to win the rebellion. He goes on, I call this process the domestication of humans. And through this domestication, we learn how to live and how to dream. In human domestication, the information from the outside dream is conveyed to the inside dream, creating a whole belief system. First, the child is taught the name of things: mum, dad, milk bottle, day by day, at home, school, at church, from television. We are told how to live, what kind of behavior is acceptable. The outside dream teaches us how to be human. We have a whole concept of what a woman is and what a man is. And we also learn to judge. We judge ourselves, judge other people, judge neighbours. Children are domesticated the same way that we domesticate a dog, a cat, or any kind of animal. In order to teach a dog, we punish the dog and we give it rewards. We train our children, whom we love so much, the same way we train any domesticated animal, with a system of punishment and reward. We are told, you're a good boy or you're a good girl. And when we do what mum and dad want us to do, and when we do what mum and dad want us to do, when we don't, we're a bad girl or a bad boy. And that's one of the really tricky things, I believe, for an empath. We are so focused on other people's emotions and making them happy. We want that acceptance. And that's one of the hardest things to do. And so we soon develop a need to hook other people's attention in order to get a reward. The reward feels good, and we keep doing what others want us to do in order to get the reward. With the fear of being punished and that fear of not getting the reward, we start pretending to be what we are not. And that's kind of like us wearing a mask. We try to please mum and dad, we try to please the teachers at school, and we try to please the church. And so we start acting, pretending to be what we are not, because we are afraid of being rejected. The fear of being rejected becomes the fear of not being good enough. Eventually we become someone that we are not. We become a copy of mum and dad's beliefs, of society's beliefs, and of religion's beliefs. All our normal tendencies are lost in the process of this domestication. And so he goes on to say that basically we follow this book of law that's been ingrained into us and made us domesticated. And he says, whatever goes against the book of law that we know, and this is where it becomes really significant, he says, whatever goes against the book of law will make you feel a funny sensation in your solar plexus, and it's called fear. Breaking the rules in the book of law opens your emotional wounds, and your reaction is to create emotional poison, because everything that is in the book of law has to be true. Anything that challenges you, what you believe, is going to make you feel unsafe. Even if the book of law is wrong, it makes you feel safe. He says, just as the government has a book of laws that rules society's dream, our belief system is the book of laws that rules our personal dream. All these laws exist in our mind, and we believe them. And he goes on to say that 95% of our beliefs are based on lies. He said the whole dream is based on a false law. 95% of the beliefs we have stored in our mind are nothing but lies, and we suffer because we believe all the lies. He said all of humanity is searching for truth, justice, and beauty. We are all on an internal search for the truth because we only believe in the lies we have stored in our minds. We don't see the truth because we are blind. What blinds us are all those false beliefs we have in our minds. We have the need to be right and to make others wrong. We trust what we believe, and our beliefs set up our suffering. It's as if we live in the middle of a fog that doesn't let us see any further than our own nose. And I think that links back to that earlier point about everyone, when you're not looking at your spiritual stuff, you're just caught up in the 3D in the matrix. Um, he goes on to say that just being ourselves is the biggest fear of humans. We've learned to live our lives trying to satisfy other people's demands. We have learned to live by other people's points of view because of the fear of not being accepted and of not being good enough. During the process of domestication, we form an image of what perfection is in order to try to be good enough. We create an image of how we should be in order to be accepted by everybody. We especially try to please the ones who love us, like mum and dad, big brothers and sisters, and priests and the teacher. Trying to be good enough for them, we create an image of perfection, but we don't fit this image. Not being perfect, he goes on, we reject ourselves, and the level of self-rejection depends on how effective the adults were in breaking our integrity. After domestication, it is no longer about being good enough for anybody else. And then he goes on to say that we dishonor ourselves just to please other people. We even do harm to our physical bodies just to be accepted by others. You see teenagers taking drugs to avoid being rejected by other teenagers. They're not aware that the problem is that they don't accept themselves. They reject themselves because they are not what they pretend to be. Nobody abuses us more than we abuse ourselves, and it is the judge, the victim, and the belief system that make us do this. And I just found that that whole part about domestication a really interesting thing, and it really got me to reflect on my own parenting and how much I had done that with my own kids. And the answer, if I'm honest, was a lot. You know, I expected them to be well-mannered. I expected them to work really hard. I expect them to be a success because they were, in fact, a reflection of me and my wife. And my kids have done really well. There's both my daughters were ducks of their high school. Isaac's doing really well in what he's doing. Nate's still in grade 11, but it really has forced me to look back on myself, on my own upbringing, and how much of my own upbringing I then channeled into them. And as it said, that a lot of those beliefs were based on lies that I was told, and it's never easy to look at that. And the mask as the wonderful parent that I've worn, even though my kids are wonderful people and do really, really well in life, I wonder how much differently I would do things if I had my time again. And the answer is probably a lot. And I would do much less of the domestication that I tried to do with them. And if I knew now about how that domestication made me put on masks, I would certainly do a hell of a lot less of it. Does that resonate with anyone? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Just even a yes in the chat about domestication and how we domesticate or train our kids. Miko says yes. Thanks, Miko. Anyone else? Sheldon, yes. Christine, most definitely. Famida, I thought I was doing something different from my parents, but I did the same thing, but with a different set of beliefs. Yeah, oh God, oh my God, Famida, I can so relate to that. I think one of the things too, that we all silently think we're not going to do the same things that our parents did, or at least we're going to do it better. And I actually think you're right. You're right, Famida, in that we just shuffle the deck chairs. We make a determination that we're not going to do those things, but it's just a different set of beliefs. And I just wonder how, if we didn't hide behind that mask of being the really good parent who's going to be better than the parents we had, how much different the world would be, how much freer we would be, and how much freer our kids would be. Sam said, totally, Steve. Nolene, I can see me doing it even with my nephews. Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And it's such a horrible word, but it also really is so true. Like domestication, you're domesticated. And I can remember when parents, when my kids got things from, say, my parents, their grandparents, or from other people, from strangers, and they didn't say something, I would always say thank you, or where are your manners, or one of those domestication type things. And to be brutally honest, the reason I did that, I wanted to look like a good parent in other people's eyes. And my children, if they did the right thing, were clearly a good reflection of me in other people's eyes. Yeah, that's got a pretty ordinary energy about it when you think about it. Sam has said, my parents more crapped on me than domesticated me. I was determined not to do that to my kids, so I tried to start domesticating my kids, but to give them a better life, but they have been on a different journey the last few months. Yeah. It really stops you thinking, stops you and makes you think. And Christina said, me too. Sam has said, I've been letting them be who they want to be with no judgment. Yeah, wow. How cool is that? You know, and it's easy. I actually think the easiest thing to do is to dismiss any of this reflection and say, oh, look, I allowed my kids to do that. And, you know, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, I don't know. But I wonder if you had done things slightly differently, or at least a little bit differently, how different it would be for your kids right now, and whether they would wear masks in the world. You know, I don't know. It's it just really, as a parent, you know, and look, I think the thing too, it's not all bad, right? I mean, a lot of the domestication stuff that and again, speaking personally, I've done with my kids has served them well. Like I said, they are very successful, right? I just wonder how emotionally successful they are. I mean, they do pretty well, so they're pretty good, but it just makes me wonder. Christina said they would be totally different. Marcus said, yes, we work hard to encourage our kids to be successful and fulfilled, yet not so much on finding a higher purpose in life, a real passion and a desire to make a difference. Like the Turtles movie from years ago. Ooh, I want that. Yeah. 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 Actually, that's an interesting thought too, Mark. I hadn't thought so much about that. You're right. It is that higher, part of that domestication is domestication so they can get by in the world, rather than that deeper stuff of, you know, what is your higher purpose? What is your passion? What's your higher purpose? The Turtles movie. Excellent. And Christine says, especially when parenting their own children. Yeah. So Christine, are you saying that when you parent your grandchildren, is that what you mean? And she said, there's nothing about higher purpose. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, because we're, especially at that phase, I think, at least for me, I was in that phase of being stuck in the 3D and never really considering, what is your high purpose? Is that really your passion? And what difference are you going to make in the world? All right. Well, thank you for sharing that, everyone. Are there any other comments about that? I do highly recommend the 4 Agreements as a book. It's really, really good, and it forced me to think on many levels about how I've approached my life, and in particular parenting, and what masks I've worn as I've gone through life. Christina said both. The way they parent their yeah, okay, I'm with you now. Yeah, yeah. So Christina said, and when the way they parent their own children. Yeah, now I treat my grandchildren quite differently when I'm conscious. Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, I guess the way they parent their children, it's almost like we're we're still parenting our kids when they have kids. Now, I'm not a grandparent, so I don't know that, but it's kind of like that, isn't it? Where we kind of still do that domestication, or at least we can default very easily to that domestication. All right, thanks everyone for sharing. I want to move on, and I guess take off my parenthood mask and my domestication, and I want to introduce you to and tell you a story about this young man here. This is Nate, short for Nathaniel. Nathaniel means gift of God. He's 17 in year 11. And that's him on his athletics carnival day. He doesn't dress like that all the time. It's just the athletics carnival in his house colours, which clearly is blue. And I'm mindful of the next segment becoming something of a slide show and tell, like your grandmother's trip to the Holy Land or something like that. I'm not trying to turn this into it, but I need to show you some things to give some context to what I'm about to share, and how taking off the mask and how that's affected me and the domestication of my kids. So I'm going to tell you a story mostly in pictures of Nate and his journey over the last probably 10 years. And it starts when he was a really little kid. I played football, as in soccer, all my life. And so when the boys were little, the girls as well, would get out in the backyard and kick the ball around. And so it was usually both boys against me, and 80%, 90% of the time they'd end up winning. And then obviously, as we do in the 3D, it goes to club sport and so forth. And this photo here is of Nate in his first year of soccer in under sixes. You can see the pants and the socks almost match. You can't see much skin, and the chubby little face, all red cheeks, full of determination. From when he was little, he stood out amongst his peer group as a really good player. Now, so that's him at about 5, I think. While he was doing that, because I'm the mask of the perfect dad, I was coaching Isaac's team. When Nate turned 6, he said to me, and I can remember this, it was only little, but it was brave for a kid that age. He said, actually, no, he was a little bit older than that. Sorry, he was probably closer to 8 or 9. He said, oh, Dad, because you've coached Isaac's team for 5 years, can you coach my team for 5 years? And it was a case of, wouldn't mind giving up this coaching gig, been doing it a while, but of course I can, mate. And that's Nate there on the left. Nate was identified early as a really good player, and he was in a number of academy teams. That's him on the left there. At least 3 of those kids have professional youth contracts with Brisbane Roar in the National Youth League. So, he was in good company. And we even went on, that's us at Brazil for the World Cup in 2014. As part of this academy, they did this big tour of Brazil. He got to play against some other kids his age in Brazil. He got to meet Tim Cahill and get the Socceroos autographs. That's them there. And that was him, and that's him there in the game against these other kids. The red and white club there is called Internacional in Porto Alegre, and every year they get 1,000 kids from all over South America applying for 15 places in their academy, because in those poor countries, being a footballer is the stairway to the stars. And so we did this wonderful trip around Brazil for the World Cup, going to all the Australian games, him playing against a number of Brazil kids. Then in 2015, we went to the Football Cup in Borneo, and in Kota Kinabalu in Borneo. And that competition has been run. It goes over multiple age groups. It's been running for, 10 years or so. And there's probably only 6 Australian teams that have ever won it. And so we were good enough to win it that year. And so before Nate had turned 12, he'd actually played football on 3 continents and had a lot of success in doing so. If you're thinking about, what about poor Isaac? Well, he went to Borneo twice and went to Europe and has played at Atletico Madrid, their fields, and Chelsea and places like that on a tour that he did. But the context of that is that football has been a massive part of his and of our life, as it's taken us around the world. And so as he got as he got older, this is him at Clubland. He continued to stand out amongst his peers, was a really good player, won championships at club level. And then he went into some representative football, and for the last 2 years has been playing against some of the better kids in the state. So that's him playing for Sunshine Coast Wanderers. In its many forms. And if I could comment on him, he wasn't the most athletically gifted player, but he just got the game. He was very elegant, beautiful on his feet, very intelligent, and not a spectacular player. But I always think the measure of a player in any sport is that you notice them more when they're not on the field. And that was like what it was for Nate. He you never really saw him, but the whole energy of the team was different when he wasn't there, and that's when people really noticed it. And he started to get noticed. He did really, really well, and I mean that's some of his trophies and so forth. So we're talking about a kid who's played at very high levels. At the end of last year, he was in under 16s, and it's going into where he was. It was going into the high representative levels in the National Premier League. So the next step up from that is the A-League, right? A professional contract. And he he was selected. He was selected to go into the under-18 team, and there were 4 kids from his team who were selected without having to trial again to go into it. There were 80 kids who turned up for their trial, and Nate was one of the ones who got a free pass. And Nate just came to me one day at the end of the end of last year, and he said, "Oh, Dad, I don't want to play anymore." And I went, it's kind of like, what the fuck? I mean, we've been around the world. You've got, it was kind of like this, right? He had the pathway, the stairway to the stars just mapped out for him. And it was a real shock. And what do you mean, mate? This is like, this is your passion. This is it for you. You are so good at what you do. And so I'm sick of the travel, because we would drive all over Southeast Queensland. We'd be at training 4-5 nights a week, plus games on the weekends. It was, on one level, it was painful. But he said, I'm sick of playing. I'm sick of training. I'm sick of traveling. I just don't want to do this anymore. And it was, ironically, it was this weekend last year. So we finished the season, and it was waiting to presentation day. He hadn't told his teammates. He had to go in front of his teammates and say that, "That's it, fellas, I'm out." And a really tough time for him to do that. And it was hard for Jenny and I as well, but in particular me, who was the dad with the mask of the good coach, dad of the star player, who really, it was a shock just to go through that. And the pressure on him was immense, because even the director of coaching at the club said, "Look, mate, you're probably just tired. Just go away, have a month off, and come back to the first day of pre-season training, and the place is there for you." He said, I'll act some kid that we put in your place. It's all right. Just come back. We just want you to play. And so he had all of this pressure, and I reflected on that probably, given my upbringing, I probably would have just played to do the right thing, to put on the mask. Yet he was brave enough not to. And this is the last day last year, just before we went to the presentation night to tell the club and his teammates that he was no longer playing. And it was a really emotional time, and it forced me to reflect on a number of things of why it was so emotional. And sure, on surface level stuff, it was like, it was the end of an era. He was the youngest of our 4 kids who, was stopping playing sport and doing those kid things. He was going to be more adult. But it also went a hell of a lot deeper. And if I think of that, it really forced me to reflect on those things. And my child isn't. My child isn't a diamond to polish. Had I been polishing him over the last 10 years to be a footballer, my child isn't my trophy to share with the world. Now, I'm not a big one to be posting shit on Facebook and all that sort of thing, but, it gave me a certain status, and the last one as well, second last one, nor my badge of honor. Being the dad of the star player was kind of cool. I was also on the board of the club and those sorts of things. It really forced me to, and we always say that we learn a lot from our kids, but it really forced me to look at how I had domesticated him and my other kids, and it wasn't overly comfortable. The day after that photo was taken, I was really struggling, and I reckon I did about 2 hours work on the Monday. It was a really struggling and upsetting time, just on many levels. And I just wanted to share with you. I sat out the back and I wrote a poem with tears streaming down my cheeks and clouding my eyes of the pain that all of this had brought up. And I called it A Brave Young Man, and I've only ever read it 2 or 3 times, and every time I've broken down. So if there are gaps in what I'm saying, bear with me. And I share this with you to see if it can help shift energy in terms of, if you have domesticated your kids, can it shift, or is there a way that you can move past that? Is there a way that you can shift the energy in your own life and in their lives? Even if not, then does it just help you reflect on where you're at with your parenting? But the poem goes like this. So, a brave young man. A brave young man followed his heart today. A brave young man showed his parents the way. A brave young man defied their expectations. A brave young man rejected all solicitations. A brave young man pushed through the hurt. A brave young man gave up his shirt. A brave young man chose a new path. A brave young man followed his heart. A brave young man was strong enough to cry. A brave young man was able to say goodbye. A brave young man found the peace of a dove. A brave young man saw unconditional love. A brave young man felt the energy shift. A brave young man listened to his God-given gifts. A brave young man wanted to start anew. A brave young man left behind what he knew. A brave young man chose a new path. A brave young man with the strength of a staff. A brave young man followed his heart today. A brave young man's life is now underway. More power to you, Nate, my brave young man. And like I said, if that can help you reflect on your relationship with your kids and the direction that things have gone, it's kind of not too late to do that sort of things. And one of the things I learned is to learn from my kids and to listen to them more. Okay, so a couple of comments here. Pastor William says, "Hey Steve, when able to, I'd like to share what it was like for me and my brothers being parented by grace." Yeah, that's going to be an interesting discussion, Will. Fantastic. Sam said, "Brings me to tears." Beautiful, Steve. Thank you. Thanks, Sam. Christine says, "Wow, that's really moving." Famita says, "I'm in tears also." Me too, Famita. Sheldon said, "Wow." Grace said, "Oh dear." All right, Will, over to you. You wanted to share what it was like being parented by Grace. So I'd love to hear that.
Yes, so yeah, because privately Grace asked me if I wanted to share what it was like being parented by her for me and my brothers. So yeah, I'll say it was very unconventional, to say the least. So really, being parented by Grace, well, if I could describe it in a brief sentence, it would be, do you want the bitchy mummy or do you want the nice mummy? So for me and my brothers, when we were growing up with Grace, I mean, she certainly did not wear her mask at all. She would definitely tell us if she was angry, if she was upset, if she was happy. and she'd be fine to say that if we were annoying and just saying all that shit. So then when we so really it taught us that we could be raw with each other, be very raw, very open, very honest, and let it all out, express ourselves. So she would do that, and we'd be vice versa. So really, it trained us to be strong, be tough, and ultimately wear no mask, and really express and completely let it out, and not to give a fuck what other people think of it. And that, well, because as she says, when you lock it in, when you bottle it up, you only kill yourself. It only destroys you. So best to speak the truth and express it, and get someone upset, rather than just keep it locked in and then kill yourself.
Yeah, thanks for that, Will.
So really, it was really liberating and very good, because it taught us that there was nothing wrong with us expressing ourselves and letting it all out. And for most parents, the ones who do the domesticating and all, we'd be seen as the bad boys, like you said, and not being a good boy. She also never put labels on us, and never said that we were being a bad boy. We have to be good. We have to act like this. Have to act like that. So really, it kind of taught us to be raw and open, and it taught us to never wear a mask, and we have to be tough. But also, it also showed us to also be kind as well, because ultimately, as you'd remember, although Jesus was a badass with balls, he also had compassion, and he healed the sick. So it was kind of like that for us.
Yeah, thanks, Will. What I would probably say to that is, fuck, you're lucky. Be
yeah. Well, in a way, yes, but in another way, Grace, you can be a real bitch.
That's see, that's a totally, and again, different eras, different times, all that sort of thing. But that was totally different from the more formal / keep the peace / don't say anything / locked up. Yeah. Be the good boy kind of.
Yep, that's it. Even with me and my siblings, whenever we'd fight and get into strife like any other siblings do, instead of her trying to rescue and kind of jump in there, she'd simply tell us, "You boys sort it out yourselves. I'm not in it. I'm not in the triangle." And then we say, "But mom," then she'd be like, "Nah, you guys sort it out yourselves, or we're having." Well, Grace would remember this very well. The meeting. If we didn't stop fighting, we'd have a 1 hour long meeting and put everything on the table. So then that's the thing that worked. When she'd say, "Okay, we're having a meeting," they're like, "No, we'll sort it out." We'll sort it out ourselves.
So anything was preferable, right, to the meeting?
Yes, anything was preferable to a 1 hour long meeting where all we're doing is expressing it on sitting there on a table. Because I'll tell you, those meetings, that 1 hour felt like a whole eternity.
Sam says, "Grace, you should write a book on parenting or a podcast."
Yes, Miko, that would be smart. That line that worked very well. And if any of us in particular were fighting too, I mean, she'd say that we have to apologize and cuddle with each other for half an hour. So we're like, "Okay, no." So then that would stop. That would happen even better. That worked even better when we had to apologize and cuddle for half an hour. So we'd be like, "No." Nothing worse than that.
There you go, Miko. There's a few strategies to try.
No, there you go, Miko.
The meeting, I could see that come with a whole lot of eye rolls from the kids, right? "Oh God, no! Please don't make us."
Yeah. Not even eye rolls. Like, no, we're not having a meeting. And then she said, well, you sort it out then. And we're like, fine then. So then we had to do that. So yeah, Grace, thanks for the parenting and thanks for being a bitch.
Grace, have you got any retort to that?
That's why I've got lots of grey hair. No, it's actually yeah, I love that what that guy said about, you know, your children, they're not your canvas.
Yeah.
We're not our dream, because we missed out as adults, our dreams. The children is not an excuse. But you know, doing what I did with the boys, I had my challenges in that I was the odd mum. You know, I got the label of, oh, look at her, she's you know, allowing her children to be animals, and
God.
because it's true about the domestication, isn't it? I wasn't, as far as I was concerned, when the umbilical cord was cut, they are on their own. When you look at the animal kingdom, how many parents that they have to take flight, or you know, as soon as a giraffe or elephant is born, they have to get up on their feet straight away. So I had my challenges was for other parents looking at me as a bad parent. I was the worst mum, not teaching my boys how to be good boys and disciplining them in a different way. So that was my challenge, to overcome the looks of other adults and just allowing my kids to be what they are, who they are, and carrying on with their purpose. So that was the biggest challenge for me, was the adults, not my children.
Yeah, I would probably say, Grace, based on my experience, that type of parenting is very not much in the minority.
Yeah.
You know, and your comments there would reflect that as well, as in that others, and probably just about all others, judged you, you know, because it was different. Yeah.
I was constantly, I mean, you've heard about Warren's parents all the time. See, I trained my mum from when I was young, so Warren didn't train his mum, so I was able to train my mum from when I was young. But the biggest thing is, yeah, the in-laws and the family putting things on you, because Warren's family comes from a really good standing kind of societal, community-based. Their families, they have a good stead in the community, and that's where Warren comes from. Where I come from, the streets, and I come from the, you know, in the street basically. And so rising from that and overcoming, putting all stuff on me, let alone putting it on my children. So some things got to give, and it's got to stop somewhere. So I was willing to go through the fire and be able to be labelled a bad mum, whatever. At one point, a family tried to take my 4 boys off, and it took a good 6 months to fight it. I was actually, I had to go through the fire, being reported to the children's welfare because I wasn't a fit mum. But it was great. It was a great fire to go through, but I was willing, because the reward of it, the outcome of it is you know, the way, giving life to my boys, and also knowing how the feminine energy works, how the mother works, the rulers and principalities of this work. So I was willing to go through the fire so that my boys can have their own life.
Yeah, and that makes total sense, because as you know, well, living with Nana, I can see the complete difference here.
Yeah, and I still feel your pain, Steve, with Nate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. It was just him and I, for whatever reason, yesterday we went to the gym boxing, and that's the first time he's been probably boxing in 18 months maybe, and we sparred a couple of rounds, and it was just interesting how that affected me as well. It really it really highlighted how much, you know, because it was consuming for 10 years, you know, being that soccer dad. You know, we did everything together, as it were, and how that had, when he said no, I don't want to do it anymore. You know, how that changed, and there was a hole there, to be fair. And it really came up yesterday. You know, when we went to the gym and beat each other up, as it were. Yeah. Yeah. Fiona, can you share? Are you able to? I see you're online, but you said you were working. Are you able to share your experience from Thursday, or not? So I was kind of. I'll assume not. Anyway, I just wanted to, because this is another version of it. So, okay, no, Fiona says no. Okay. So she's given me permission to share this. So, as many of you know, Warren runs a youth education thing and investing on Thursday. So one of the things they do at the end of every class is go around and say, what was your main takeaway from today? And Fiona just happened to come in with her son, Evan, you know, just towards the end of it, and was listening. And she said to him, well, what are you going to say? You know, what are you going to say to the group? And he just went, you know, being a teenage boy, he went, oh, no, nothing, didn't learn anything. And for an instant, Fiona kind of bristled a bit, and you know, and then she went, okay, no, I'm just going to step back and let him deal with this. And his turn came around. He said, oh, nothing really today. And to me, that was a really good example of the domestication, because I reflect, if I had been, you know, when you know, maybe say Isaac was Evan's age and he had said that, I would have probably gone full on rage. You know, this man's given up his time and you can't even think of one thing, and done that whole domestication thing. But you know, why does it have to be like that? You know, why, if Evan in this instance, and good on Fiona for stepping back like that, why can't he say, I've really got nothing to say? And that, why can't that be okay? Yet the domesticated parent and the domesticating parent in me would have wanted to, you know, for him to say something more than that. And it was a really interesting, just little take on how much we do domesticate it. You know, if the boy didn't want to talk, that's okay. 2, if he didn't get anything out of it, that's okay as well. And 3, it's not Evan's job to make the presenter feel good. Right. So, you know, so good on him for not being, you know, not giving into that, and good on Fiona for stepping back and allowing him to do that. So that was just the short one from Fiona in that illustration. So yeah, are there any other thoughts about any other discussion points about you know, parent masks and how maybe you've domesticated your kids, or, you know, has any of that discussion sparked anything in you? Is there anything that anyone wants to share before we finish up?
Hi, Steve. I was just going to say, really, for me, there's too many to remember, really, I would say, over the years. But probably the biggest thing is that the children have to behave and be good, really. That's like the dominating thing. All your lists before of, and it's applied to how I was parented as well, is the be good thing is the one thing that's really stands out for me, I think, for both the way I was parented, and I think to what have I done to my children. But now that I have grandchildren, I do look at how their parents are parenting them, and what Fiona did the other day was fantastic, huge shift. And I look at my other children parenting their children, and I feel like saying, don't say that, They're allowed to do this. How do I communicate that to them without telling them what to do, you see?
Mm.
So that's an interesting question at all as well. So definitely for me to break out of that mould, it's like this habit that you have to be watching yourself all the time or being conscious, because otherwise I slip back into the habit again. So it's a matter of being aware, really. And what you've said today has been really fantastic because it's so raw, taking that mask off. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, what came up for me when you were saying that is it's like that thing around Christmas when kids on school holidays and parents were getting annoyed. They'd be saying, Santa's watching, and that's kind of that style of parenting of always got to be doing the right thing. You know, always have that mask on.
Yeah, well, Steve, it's Warren. I can remember when I was a kid, there was this particular boy who lived nearby me, and his mum was just like extraordinary with him. Like, I mean, I thought mine was pretty bad. This one was like mine on steroids. You know, she would make her son was on all kinds of curfews. He wasn't allowed to eat anything other than a very, very strict diet. He wasn't allowed to do all this kind of stuff. And I remember when he turned 16, he just absolutely broke out and went the opposite. And he got his hair, and his sister got her hair done weird, and they just did everything opposite to what their parents wanted. And I know when with parenting, it's one thing I decided with all the boys, because I could see the kind of domestication trying to come in, but through external sources. And that's why I reckon the state taking charge of kids through education is a big factor that domesticates. Because even if you as a parent don't do it, there's going to be relatives, there's going to be the state, there's going to be the education system, there's going to be the workplace. Something's going to try and domesticate and conform. And so I can remember when William and I especially were talking, and he was starting to get people and family members and others put pressure on him about getting a job, whatever else, and then about the boys should start thinking about uni. And when they asked me, what do you think? I said, personally, I think that the moment you get a job or go to uni, your likely destiny is to work for someone else. So I said, if you want to do that, go for it. But I said, ideally, you should do it because you're going to have your own business or sovereignty, because at the moment you choose that path, you are basically being trained to work for someone else. And I think it's just because, and look, I don't just use the word guilty, but I'm certainly tend to do this to people around me I love. It's like we want to be rescuers. We want to protect them from it. But I've just been thinking so much at the moment, Steve, just how much. Imagine if you tried to protect a caterpillar in its horrible struggle, seeing in the cocoon because you feel sorry for it. It never becomes a butterfly.
Yeah.
And so struggle is actually what, and kind of like at times the despondency that you feel, the sense of wanting to give up, the pain, the fact that thinking you're not going to make it work, but pushing through that's actually what makes you become successful. And so we've often gone through that to some degree because our parents were so shocking with us, it forced us to be that way. But then we think, okay, well, let's not do that for our kids, but we've got to get that balance really right. So we don't rescue them while at the same time saying, hey guys, you know, going to uni, going to school, going to whatever. It's like with Josiah. I can remember when I was constantly getting messaged about his schooling from the teachers. And this was one time where it was very tempting to domesticate him and crack down on him because he wasn't doing homework. And I remember really thinking about how I was going to handle this, because I thought, the one thing, on the one hand, I don't want to let this kind of go missing, but at the same time, I don't want to be domesticating this kid, you know, and forcing my agenda upon him. So I remember the way I eventually handled it after a lot of thought was I just said to him, look, you know, I'm paying 12 grand fees for you to go to school. Now I said, if I'm not paying anything for you to go to school, I don't really give a rat's ass what you do. I said, you know, if you want to play truant and not do your work properly, I said, I actually really can't can't do much about it. I can try to force you. But I said, no one actually wins by that. So I said, I'm not actually going to force you, but I am going to say to you that I don't really like the idea of paying 12 grand fees for you to go to a school and just horse around. So I said, I'm happy for you to do that if you go to a public school. It doesn't cost me anything. But he said, I don't want to go to the public school. It's got bogans in it. And I said, well, that's your choice, isn't it? I said, you can either have your freedom, not do your homework, play up and have no parental intervention and have it for free, but then go to a bogan school, or you can keep going to this current school, but you can do what your teachers tell you and I keep paying them. So I said, I'm going to give you the choice. And I remember this little smile broke out in his face and he goes, yep, okay, you got me there. He said, I'll do it. I said, you'll do what? He said, no, I won't cause any more problems in school. And he actually kept his word after that. He turned up to school, did his stuff, but then next year anyway, he decided he wanted to be homeschooled. So I think that's the balance where you don't domesticate by forcing your will. You've more just got to give kids choices, which means also make them wear the consequences of their choice as well.
I think, Warren, in terms of domestication, there's one word that you said there a few times, and that's force. You know, domestication is all about force.
Yes. Forcing your will upon somebody else, whether by manipulative means or direct means. That's how I see it. And we think, oh, because they're kids, it's somehow different, but it's actually not. I mean, in fact, even a 4-year-old kid or 3-year-old kid has got, to some degree, and I know I'm starting to sound a bit left-wing, I don't need to be, but they've still got some degree of intelligence, right to choose or whatever else. And so my approach to doing it was, well, you know, as much as possible, letting them do things, but also setting our own boundaries within the house. So there's obviously certain things, like if you go and break something, well, there's got to be consequences because you're affecting other people's stuff. So I know Grace and I always said, let's just parent by life, liberty, property. It's provided what they're doing doesn't affect life, liberty, or property in the household. By and large, let them find their own path.
It's interesting there. Sam has commented that's what Isaac hates the most, being forced to do anything. It must be in the name, I think, Sam, because my Isaac's exactly the same.
I don't blame him though, Sam, because my guess is that I don't think you like being forced to do anything either, if you think about it.
Yeah.
You probably hated every minute of it when your mum and dad tried to knock the shit out of you and kind of break your spirit right down and kind of force you to conform and fall in with the family agenda, so to speak. And then I think it's like it says in the Bible, the sins of the fathers carry down the generations. And someone's got to say enough is enough. We're not going to keep that path going. Yeah,
and that probably is a nice segue into Miko's comments. She said, yes, I can relate so much to everything, as I was raised by a Nazi stepmom mostly, which made me run away from home starting at 13, obviously running away from the force. So I vowed never to be like that. And that's a really good example of what you're just saying there, Warren, breaking that pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I enjoy what you're saying today because it's real issues. And I think that most people struggle with parenting. I mean, and it's interesting because I know Sammy, she's had a different kind of struggle because she struggled with she has no interest in being a parent whatsoever. She actually really doesn't. And she's actually very happy with that. But of course, she's had to go through the whole struggles to domesticate and conform and, thinking like, being judged as to, well, maybe why do you not want to have kids, and is there something wrong with you? Or is it maybe you're just going through something, you will in time and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I think for parents, by contrast, it's a hard one because especially for mothers, I think mothers I know for who I've spoken to, the whole social acceptance is really big for the feminine. Yeah. So when they see their child like in a supermarket playing up, the fear that often hits the mother is like, oh my God, what are all the other mothers thinking about me? What are they thinking about how bad my kid is? And so often when they try and conform their kid, I reckon it's more just a case of it just freaking out because of what people will think. And it's really understandable. At the same time, it's shocking. It's shocking for, absolutely shocking for kids, and because what it's teaching them is your will isn't important, as long as other people are kept happy. And I certainly was the beneficiary of that kind of parenting. And had so much issues letting go to actually learn to just do what I wanted to do, regardless of what people thought. Yeah, such a hard shift.
Yeah. Sam says, yeah. William says, yeah, I'm the same. Nolene, yep, I can relate to Sammy, but you'd make a great mother. Oh, fuck off. Would you really, Nolene? Oh, good to see the mask off. Classic. Grace said there's a comment from Mark on the Q&A. Okay.
Sam, I take my kids out of situations where there's heaps of judgment. I take them home and let them be them. Yeah, exactly, Sam, because you just don't know with your kids, do you? Like the one that everyone else thinks is a bit odd, or is a bit of it's just because they don't fit into the norm. And very bright, unusually bright kids are often like that.
Mm.
So, and I prefer to be weird and odd than part of this horrible COVID normal mainstream life.
Mm. There is a comment in the Q&A from Mark. Kids are very different in this generation than when I was growing up. So many more opportunities and challenges, and so many more ways to go astray. A key point for me, that our kids have strong boundaries in what they will not accept and where they want to go in life. To be open to reflecting on how they manage their life and interactions with other people, and seek out that perpetual questions that we all hide from. Why are you here, and what it is that really makes your life worthwhile? To pursue something bigger than you. What is a critical problem that you want to solve? Or do you want to be a sheep and follow what everyone else does, and let that conversation evolve? Yeah, you're right, Mark. Those, we do hide from those, right? Because they're not easy questions. And probably, I think, for a lot of parents, they don't know the answer to that question. So when they can't look at it themselves, how do you encourage someone else? And they look to you for guidance, and you don't have an answer. So that's a really interesting point. All right. Anyone else? Anything else before we wrap up? No? Okay. All right. Let's keep moving, just mindful of time. All right. So just last couple of things to finish up. I did a reading this week for the group from probably my favorite deck, the Energy Oracle cards. So that's what the deck looks like on the left. The back of each card is on the right. When I read from these cards, I shuffle them a little bit, then I cut the deck and tap the deck two or three times to clear them, and then I shuffle them again. When I was shuffling, 2 cards jumped out, and then I chose the one that I did for the reading. But it's interesting, the 2 cards that jumped out. The first one was Storm Warning, and that's clouds on the horizon. This card indicates a potential difficulty either in the external world or within yourself and your emotional life. The difficulty is coming closer. And one thing I will say is that I always pay attention to a card that jumps out of a deck when you're shuffling, because to me, there's an important message there. The difficulty is coming closer, and you may have already heard rumblings of potential problems around you. The caution here is to be conscious yet not fearful. Consider what's going on and look at the situation with calm clarity. Investigate your options and honor yourself and your intentions. Stand up for yourself and take action on your own behalf. As with all difficulty, even the worst storm passes. Always remember you have the power and the wisdom to handle whatever may come your way. That's really interesting. I think the relationship there to taking the mask off, when you do that, yeah, there's a storm coming, both internally, as we've mentioned, and externally when other people see a different you. So I think that's really relevant. It comes with an affirmation at the end. I have the power to overcome any obstacle. No matter what is going on, I can be strong, confident, and self-directed. I'll be really interested to see, and I don't wish any negative on anyone, but to see what storms come up for everyone this week as the masks come further off. Storms aren't necessarily bad. They bring rain and cleanse things as well. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting one. It's interesting that one really jumped out of the deck. That was the first one that jumped out. Just a quick question here or comment from Fiona. Thanks for telling my story about Evan. It was spot on. The only thing that I would like to add was that Warren commented to Evan that at least he told his truth. Yeah, really good point. That's it. I mean, there is power then in him saying, I don't have anything to share. What's wrong with that, right? That was his truth. There was nothing wrong with that. Yet if we had a prodded, come on, you should, think about these other people, all they've done for you today, and no, that all that bullshit that we would have done. At least he was honest, and you should never get into trouble for being honest and speaking your truth. So yeah, thanks, Fiona. So yeah, like I said, I'll be interested to see what happens storm warning wise for everyone. The second card that jumped out was card 39 of Archangel Gabriel. Now it is reversed for the simple reason this deck has different a reverse card is an upright card. Archangel Gabriel is the archangel that looks after communication, and that's obviously related to the throat chakra, self-expression, and speaking your truth. And we've been talking about taking masks off. So it says this card reversed often indicates significant blocks in the throat center. Something in your history may have caused you to shut down, but it's important now to break through that unhealthy pattern, or you may currently be in a situation where the free sharing of your ideas, opinions, or feelings is being thwarted. For me, that means, we still wear masks. In addition to the fear of self-expression, this card reverse could indicate physical throat problems, as all the chakra cards reversed may signal difficulties in that area of the body. The physical trouble may be connected to the blocked energy in that chakra, so it's all the more important to work on clearing the energy in the center involved. To clear the throat chakra, call upon Gabriel and meditate on his power blasting through any blocks. See your throat center spinning in a beautiful blue light. Muster up the courage to speak your truth, there's that word again, to yourself and to those around you. It's time to let go of any old fear of confrontation and stand up for yourself from now on. Interestingly, muster up the courage to speak your truth to yourself. And that's obviously where it starts with first. And that was the thing on Wednesday. Yeah, I'm a cranky bastard. I'm a cranky bastard often. And so I had to speak that truth to myself before I spoke it out to anyone else. And then the affirmation, my throat chakra is open to its perfect healthy state, spinning with the beautiful energy of freedom and self-empowerment. I am free to express myself in every way. And then the card that I actually drew is the thinking man. And this is a male of wisdom or understanding. And this card upright shows a man standing before an archway, gazing at a crystal in his hand. He is a thoughtful and reflective man representing the potential presence of a teacher in your life now or about to arrive soon. This person may be there to educate you in the finer details of your chosen direction, or may be there to assist you in some specific spiritual, mental, or emotional pursuits. The card is telling you to pay attention, for this could lead to greater strides in personal or professional growth. This man may also be a love interest coming your way. If you're single, good luck to you, or perhaps just a new male friend. Be on the lookout for this guide in the physical world and be open to his information. Learn what you can. A new discipline, technique, course of study, or healing practice could change your life forever. Whenever I draw that card, I think of people who influence me. Yes, Warren's name comes up, people like Stephen Petith. So I actually pay more attention to what I've heard them say recently and see how that applies to my life. So the affirmation with this one, I'm willing to learn new things. It is safe and comfortable for me to open up and share. So that was the reading for the group today. So that's a quick recap of this week. Rule number 6, it's always good to finish on a little lighthearted note. And so in the wisdom of Solomon, I noticed Warren's been talking about Solomon a lot of late. 2 women in a bus fighting bitterly over the last available seat. The conductor had already tried unsuccessfully to intervene when the bus driver shouted to the conductor, "Let the ugly one take the seat." Both women stood for the rest of the journey. Argument done. Yeah, that's a nice little way to finish. I was going to read a chapter from this book called True Love about the 4th mantra, but I'm feeling I'll leave that till next time. So the final thought then, if you want people to love you for who you are, take the mask off. or at least start taking the mask off and the different masks that you wear. As you saw at the start and from last time, I got lots, and that's just an ongoing evolving process and journey for me. So that's all from me. So it's a case of a namaste from me. And I will hand back to you, Grace.
How good was that session, guys? I went through all sorts of roller coasters, Steve. I went up, down, had some tears, my heart ached. I was excited. And then the last bit about the man coming. So Nolene and I are actually excited now.
Well, I did say good luck. You could be in for disappointment, Grace. It might be just a man of learning.
I think so. Steve, I think she will be in for disappointment.
They'll be disappointed because I won't have time for them. But no, seriously, it's such an excellent message. I mean, you can take the purpose of I got William to share is because, you know, Warren and I always constantly talk about our children. So it's occasionally it's nice to hear from their side. So I encourage William to present how his outlook of it, growing up with his brothers, and how Warren and I parented them. So thank you for that, William. And if you've noticed, when William and I work together, I set a boundary that he looks at me as my own person, as my own entity. Because when he and I work together in the energy field, I don't want him to look at me as his mum, because there's a label in that, the human side in us, we'll filter it through. So it's wonderful for William too to actually call me my name, Grace. And so that he and I look at the same as I'm looking at Steve, as I'm looking at Warren, you guys. William is very much his own entity. So we call each other, he calls me by my names to make it a lot easier when we actually do this kind of work. So so in the end, thank you so much, Steve. I got for me personally, I got a lot out of it too. Looking at that mask and continuing to taking it off. And you know what? It doesn't get easier.
Yeah, there's the great news. and even more good news coming, in inverted commas, good news, storm warning. Remember the card that jumped out of the deck, right? So interested to see how that plays out for everyone this week.
Well, you did take out that tornado at one stage, didn't you? And it really hit your household.
Certainly did.
But that's the beauty about it. The beauty about it is that we become ballerinas. We know how to stretch the muscles. We know how to pirouette. And we get skillful at the art. And do you know what? As much as it's hard and it's tearjerker, it's painful, but there's nothing fulfilling in this life, isn't there? We're suckers for punishment, but punishment is actually magnificent because it causes us to really shine our light, be fulfilled in our truth, and be authentic and be free. And anything through history of mankind, any liberation and liberty, some kind of freedom, there has to have some suffering and pain. But the perspective on that is that liberty and freedom. And that's what we all want, to be free from all this stuff. So again, namaste. Have a great week, everybody. Have a great day and night. And we'll see you soon. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Grace. Thanks, everyone. Have a good week. And I'll see you in a couple of hours, Nolene. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Steve.
Bye.